Today, I want to talk about overwhelm because overwhelm is something that we all experience, that we all go through as human beings, whether it's varying degrees, right? It can go from someone that's very overwhelmed to someone who's a bit overwhelmed. It is very dependent on what stage of life you're in, what things you fill your time with. It could go from the relationships that you have to the work that you do at your job to the video games that you play, because video games can make you overwhelmed as well. But today I want to talk about specifically the overwhelm that you feel from consuming too much social media. And the reason why is because I have been feeling this the past few months. This overwhelm specifically comes from seeing other people do what you really want to do but are not capable of doing. So, whether that's launching the business that you've always wanted to start, or going on a holiday to a destination that you were never able to go to, it could be literally anything. If you're into cooking, it could be seeing someone cook the recipe that is so difficult that you would dream of making. You know, it really ranges from one side to the next. It's infinite. You could experience overwhelm from literally anything. And I feel like I have the antidote to that. And you probably know this antidote as well. You probably have heard of it before or you've thought about it before. But I want to repeat it because it's very important. I feel like a lot of us consume social media non intentionally because the algorithms of the platforms that we consume content on are made this way. They're made to keep you on the platform, to keep you watching videos. Whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram Reels, whether it's YouTube with the recommended sections, it is all made for you to continue watching content or to see something interesting right before you actually want to get off the platform so that you just keep on going. And I feel like that's one of the biggest problems nowadays or the one of the biggest dangers to people's focus and ambition and creativity is that we actually get pulled into this vortex. It's explained very extremely, but bear with me. In this vortex of information, content that we consume, but that actually wasn't intentional. So we consume content that we really didn't want to consume in the first place. And that's what's causing the overwhelm because we see stuff that we weren't supposed to see or that we actually didn't really want to see. And even though we know that, even though you know that you're laying in bed scrolling reels for an hour and not feeling any better after that, we keep doing it because, of course, we know the effects of, um, this addictive feeling of social media on your dopamine receptors and whatnot. There's enough videos talking about that, so I won't go deeper into that. But even though we know it's bad, we keep doing it. So we are aware that there's a problem, but we are not aware of how to fix it. Because if you're watching this video, probably you've tried before to put in place a regimen or what's it called, a monk mode, where you basically deprive yourself of all dopamine sources and you try to get back on track with your creativity, with your productivity, with your focus. But you keep refalling or you keep falling off the wagon with this, right? After a certain amount of time, you just fall off the wagon and you continue consuming content. Non intentionally. That's a very important nuance. And I want to touch on it because, like I said, I have been feeling this for the last few months. And I think I figured out how to kind of change your mindset so that you can, one, see that you're doing something that's not really good for you, and two, put an alternative into place for this. One of the alternatives that I love is consuming content, but in a different way. So, the dopamine that you get from consuming video content, for example, if you love watching reels or if you love scrolling on TikTok, try to get that dopamine spark from something else. Whether it's music, whether it's sports, whether it's reading a book, whether it's watching a movie, even though you're still watching a screen, this is already something more long form, where you don't consume like 100 contexts in a span of, what is it, like 10 minutes? Because if you scroll short form specifically, you your brain cannot handle the speed at which it needs to change contexts and understand what's on your screen. If one video is a guy skiing, and then the next video is a guy chilling on the beach, and then the next video is a turtle in the south of France or whatever, there's not even turtles there, but I'm just giving an example. Your brain has to change context so many times that it cannot keep up, and then it gets overwhelmed. A movie or a show is one context. You're still watching a screen, but it's already a little bit better than this fast short form content. And so how I see it is this funnel, right? This funnel of focus. If you're really at the beginning and you're a beginner and you want to change this habit, probably you come from short form, try to move on to a bit more long form, because this is already the first step that you can take towards, relaxing your mind and combating this overwhelm. And then when you go down the funnel, you keep going further and further. So, for example, when you went from short form to long form, then you go even more long form and you watch, for example, a lecture, a university lecture on a topic that you love. This is already much longer and much more dull to say than a movie, because, of course, movies and shows are optimized to keep you like hooked and to keep your mind focused on the movie. A lecture is there's a bit more friction for you to pay attention that long. So that could be the next step. The next step for that could be read a book, because in this case, you don't get visual stimuli from watching the lecture, but you're just using your imagination and your brain to understand what you're reading. And then the next step could be to read a book, but a lot more intentionally. Let's say you have a big project at work on a certain topic, then you pick a book on that topic and you read that book, because you're looking for very specific information and you're consuming content in an intentional way. And so now I basically gave away what I think the antidote is for this overwhelm that you feel from consuming too much social media, is to go deeper, but intentionally. You stop watching algorithm-based content. So you don't consume TikTok anymore. You don't consume Instagram Reels anymore. YouTube, there's still space for YouTube, but you need to find a plugin. And I know there's a few plugins that exist that allow you to kind of get rid of the homepage or the recommended page. And it only lets you search for specific topics or specific videos on, things that, the things that you search. And this is already a much better way to kind of combat this overwhelm, because let's say you're a young man in your 20s and you want to start an online business like I want to do, but you keep YouTube as like an entertainment habit with the recommended section. This probably like I do. You scroll through the recommended page until you find something that seems interesting without really looking for something specific. And that's how it turns into an entertainment habit rather than a very useful habit where you use that specific information towards a goal, because you just keep clicking on videos that seem interesting to you, whether or not they have anything useful for you regarding that specific piece of information that you need. I don't know if I explained that sentiment correctly, but that's what I want to what I want to talk about. Because one thing that I do yearly is delete my Instagram, for example. I know that there are certain periods in the year where I'm really addicted to watching Instagram Reels, and then I just completely delete Instagram so that I'm not tempted by the Reels tab or anything else on Instagram. And that really helps. That really helps get my screen time down. It really helps me put more time and effort into the things that actually move the needle, that matter. And I think that's what most of you are looking for, right? You're in a lack of direction. You don't know where to look and you don't know what to consume to move forward. And I feel like that's the first step, because also, if you stop consuming so much content, your mind will become much clearer. You will be creative because that's your natural state. If you allow, or if you give your mind and your brain the space to think freely and to come up with ideas yourself rather than ideas coming to you from content, you will be much more creative, and you will notice that. You will notice a very big difference if you tone down the amount of content you watch and you turn up the amount of space that you give your brain and your mind to really reflect on things. One thing that I love to do the past few weeks is go on walks. I know Dan Coe is a very big supporter of going on walks, and it really has its reasons, because walking, there's nothing else you can do. Yes, you could listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or there's even people that walk with a book in hand and then read like this. But my recommendation, if you feel directionless and if you don't know where to look or what to consume, don't do anything on your walk except walking. You could bring your pet, of course, your dog or something, along on the walk, because then you kill two birds in one stone, right? You walk your dog, but you're also having a bit of time for yourself to reflect and to think creatively. And I think that's what most people need, including me, is to just give yourself more space to think creatively and to think freely. Because consuming too much content is blocking that ability, and that's causing the overwhelm. That's the thing that is causing you to lose direction, because you hear so many things, but you don't listen to yourself. You don't really formulate any thoughts of your own on the things that you learn. So you don't know what to do, because every single moment you hear something else, and then your mind changes about one thing and moves to another. And we want to create this consistent habit of just tuning into how you feel, how you think, what is on your mind, what you think you should focus on, what you think you should commit to. And as long as you give yourself that space and you give yourself the balance between consuming content intentionally, which is a tip that I really want to give you, is if you consume content, do it intentionally based on the creative thoughts that pop up in your moments of space. One thing for me is I want to launch an online business, right? And I've been struggling for so long to find an idea or a niche to go into, to create content into, to attract customers in, to build a product in or a service in, and then offer that. Very difficult for me. And I've been dabbling with a lot of things over the past few years. For example, I once launched a high sensitivity coaching offer a few years ago that wasn't really a hit. I mean, of course, there were a lot of people interested in that. And I talked to a lot of highly sensitive people about that. But that didn't work for me because, of course, I lacked a lot of expertise in that. I am highly sensitive myself, but that's the only expertise I have. Then I went on to make an ebook about self-discipline, which did pretty good. I sold a few of that. I also did free coachings in that of people that just wanted advice on how to cultivate more self-discipline. And now I'm thinking about going into this direction of using AI for creators and for the creator economy, and how you could leverage AI to launch an online business or make your existing business more efficient. So I've been dabbling in a lot of topics, and that last one is the one I want to go with, because AI is, of course, we all know it, a growing industry. It's becoming more and more important, and people who are not AI literate will, I think, get left behind pretty soon, sooner than we think. And so just to say that, because I've been dabbling in these different topics for the last few years, I really need to commit to one thing and go deeper into that. Content is something that I've been doing for the last 2 years, I would say, on and off. because, you know, there's been a few hiccups, and because I see that certain topics didn't work out, and then I quit for a few months and then I relaunched it again. So I really want to make this video also for myself, to keep myself accountable, to post more, to stay consistent, to stick with one niche, and yeah, let's just keep it at one niche, and keep it with that. And that's how I want to reduce my own overwhelm, is to stop looking for new bright ideas and rely on shiny object syndrome, but to really stick with one thing that you choose and that you commit to. And I think that's the key to reducing this overwhelm, is to, in my case, only consume content intentionally on the problems that I need to solve in order to make this work. Let's say that I have a video and I need to edit it pretty well, then that's an intentional video topic that I would search: how to edit a video a certain way, you know? So stopping the scroll on algorithm-based platforms for most of you is going to be the most useful bet, is the most useful step to reduce overwhelm. That's the thing you could immediately implement. And then you move on to searching for something that you want to work on. And you will get to this idea after you've done some reflecting, and you've spent some time in silence just with yourself, because that's when you think freely and you think creatively. After a few times that you do that, you will get to an idea or something that you really want to work on, or a problem that you really want to solve for yourself or for other people. It really doesn't matter. But when you get that, then you can start thinking about that idea, and you will encounter roadblocks. You will encounter resistance from somewhere, a problem that you need to solve. And that's when you consume content about that specific thing that you need to solve. That's when you consume content intentionally, and you don't overwhelm yourself with things that really don't matter at all. Or, right, in this example of launching an online business means that you don't have a business yet. If you then, you know, go on an algorithm based platform and you see someone making $100,000 a month, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel discouraged. You're going to think, why am I not there? Why does this not work for me? And then you overwhelm yourself. So try to avoid that, and try to be really intentional with the things you consume. Long form, the longer form it is, the better, I would say, because this expands the elasticity of your mind, let's say, to keep up your focus for longer periods of time. I don't know if there's a scientific base for that, but I feel like that's pretty rational. And so that's what I'm going to try. That's what I'm going to do in the next few months, at least, is to try to keep this intentional, try to limit my screen time, and try to limit the consumption of content that is non-intentional. And I really want to stick with this one thing at least for a year, so that I can see if I can make this work. And that is my thought to you. That's where I will end this video. I hope this was useful. I hope you think there's some truth in it, or if there's anything else that you would like to add, I would love to learn from you as well. And if this kind of raw, unfiltered, unedited content makes sense for you, and you like watching it, you like the topics that I talk about in the videos, also consider subscribing, dropping a like, and sharing the video with other people that you think might be interested. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.